You are watching the Fayetteville Government Channel. Up next, full coverage of the latest meeting of the Environmental Action Committee. The Environmental Action Committee is composed of citizen volunteers and meets on the second Thursday of each month. The committee advises the City Council regarding environmental issues facing the City of Fayetteville and its residents. And now, the Environmental Action Committee.
It is 5:30, and I'd like to thank everyone for coming. I'm waiting on Peter. He's got our agenda and everything.
If you turn off the light, you can see it.
Is it? There you are.
Sorry.
Okay. Our agenda.
I do. It's on the... was on the screen. There.
Excellent.
Ta-da!
Haven't moved them out.
All right. Well, I would like to thank everyone, or I guess I'll start out. I'm Sarah Marsh. I represent the citizens of Ward 1 on the Fayetteville City Council and chair of this committee. And I would like to thank everyone for accommodating the new date and time. And I know that several people are on their way. They're running late and having to deal with traffic and such. So let's just get started with introductions. Mike, do you want to start first?
Well, I'm Mike Emery. I live out in Ward 4 and I currently work for the Washington County Animal Shelter.
Mike. I'm Richard Russell, live in Ward 1. I'm a member of the committee as a scientific resource, geology.
Okay.
Joel Walsh, I'm a reporter with the Northwest Arkansas Times. I've been to the EAC for bits a lot of seconds.
Thanks for coming. Yolanda?
Yolanda Fields, I'm the Community Services Director for the City of Fayetteville.
Alan Long, I represent the citizens of Fayetteville as an alderman for Ward 4.
Peter Nierengarten. I am the city's Director of Sustainability and Strategic Planning and the staff representative for the Environmental Action Committee.
Doug James, I'm a professor at the university, but I'm president of the Northwest Arkansas Audubon Society.
Okay.
I'm Scott Harper, and I actually do not live in Fayetteville, but I'm a member of the No Kill Fayetteville organization here, and just here to see what's going on and hear what everybody's going to say.
Great.
My name is Bruce Francis. I live just outside Fayetteville, and I'm an animal person, and I'm here for the same reasons that you live.
Great.
Interested to see what y'all are talking about.
Thank you.
Marcia Donnelly, I'm a resident of Fayetteville and a past member of the State Animal Services Advisory Board, and I represent the state.
Great.
Sorry.
All right. And we have some new members.
I'm not just we're being closed to the meeting.
We thought the room was one. Yeah, they were downstairs.
Welcome. We were just doing introductions, and Aubrey, you're up.
Hello, I'm Aubrey Shepherd. You have more people up here.
Yes.
It's back there.
And would the two people who just walked in care to introduce yourselves to the group?
I'm Joe Neal.
Okay, great.
Carrie Phelan.
Thank you for coming. All right. Well, should we wait a few minutes for everyone else to come, Peter? Or what's your call? Should we just keep going?
Well, how many Environmental Action Committee members do we actually have here?
That's all we got. Terry, we knew Terry was not going to be here. Anybody else said they weren't coming?
We knew, there were at least 4 emails I got of folks that weren't going to make it.
Oh.
Okay.
So now we have 1.
Yeah, maybe it's a spring break issue.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then let's just keep going. Audubon, would you care to address the group?
You want to start, Joe?
Sure. Joe Neal here from Northwest Arkansas Audubon Society.
And actually, if you want to come up and sit at the table so that we can hear you on the
Where's
microphone.
the best place?
That's good right there. Or you can come up here if you'd like
this?
to talk to the group.
Okay.
Actually, come up here.
Mics are on the seat.
Okay.
They're actually on the tables now.
Yeah. So that's all right. Those are working now.
No, it's not.
You guys are sitting in the dark.
Okay. Do you have a printed copy, Peter?
No, I was trying to say that.
Okay. Well, I commend that. I can read it still. All right, thank
move
you.
over and share.
I was saving paper too.
Well, I know that you guys have at least 3 or 4 hours to devote to this topic, so I'll give you all the details. No, the way this came up, and the reason that I'm here and Doug James and Terry Phelan are here is because when the city adopted the ordinance dealing with cats and a way of trying to deal with cats and creating a method for people to set up cat colonies.
No, this is feral cats.
Feral cats.
Okay.
When that came up, it sort of came up in a way, and it didn't give our group an opportunity to study the issue, because this is a central issue, a central conservation issue for us in terms of wildlife and wildlife management, and it sort of came out of the blue. And that, you know, I'm not blaming anybody for that. It's probably, I'm kind of disconnected because I'm not bird watching and so forth. At any rate, it came up, and the ordinance that finally passed in the city can easily be read to indicate that the city is supporting the idea of allowing cats to roam freely in colonies. In other words, one part of the ordinance dealing with animal control is that I can pick up the phone if there's a roaming cat in Fayetteville, or a roaming dog, and I can ask somebody to come and pick that animal up or to catch it. So it's driven by complaint. The ordinance seems to allow people to create cat colonies, but it doesn't impose any controls in terms of what's done with those cats. So there's nothing in there that requires the cats to be confined the way I would have to confine a cat. And so I realize, and we talked about this extensively at Northwest Arkansas Audubon Society Board, that people have a lot of strong feelings about their pets, and especially about their cats, and they want the animals to be dealt with humanely, and I'm completely for that. And so what we decided that the best approach here was not to try to change the ordinance itself, except to amend the ordinance with a couple of lines that requires people who go forward and try to set up a cat colony to confine those cats in some way. It has to be an agreeable way that keeps them from roaming.
Okay. Peter, do we have a copy of the ordinance that we could show on the board?
Yeah, I have it on the screen, Sarah.
It would be helpful if we go ahead and review the ordinance.
What's the protocol for questions later?
Come back on. Yeah.
We probably should have reviewed the ordinance to begin with, but...
I was just curious what we're speaking of when we say the word colony.
Mm-hmm.
Just curious about what that means.
Well, it's actually defined in there.
Yeah, let's consult the ordinance and see what we can find out. It is Chapter 92. I believe it's page 9.
Yeah, page 9.
Page 9, it starts on page 9. It's the bottom.
Yeah, it starts at the very bottom and then wraps up to the top right there. Okay.
Okay. Would it be helpful if we read this for everyone? Can everyone see it? Or would you like me to read it?
Yeah, so the first item there is basically, let's see, trapping and neutering of your cats. As I read it, it basically asks you to try to supervise your cats and get them basically spayed and neutered. Okay, so that's right here: sterilization, ear tipping, recapture the cats, update rabies shots. Your organization that sponsors the feral cat colony has to be registered. You're trying to find adoptive homes for any kittens that are born, and then you're providing essentially an annual report on the total number of cats in the colony, number of sterilizations, vaccinations, and kittens born, and then kittens placed into adoptive care. And I think the rest of it generally just talks about what organizations can do this, but there is no mention of, as Audubon is suggesting.
Well, you see the running at large provision. It's sort of ambiguous. That's really the problem. And this is the kind of thing that, if we'd have gotten prepped ahead when all this came up, we could have avoided, we could have gotten some language in there that I think would have made the ordinance actually better. It would have allowed the cat colonies to exist, which I am opposed to the cat colonies also, but I understand that it's a kind of a compromise between killing all non-owned cats, and you know, I understand that, and I understand people's feelings, so I'm okay with that. But the cats need to be confined some way, so that they can't run loose. I mean, they can't prey on wildlife. And so the only reason we're even here tonight is I posted a letter to the Birds of Arkansas discussion list saying that it's strange that the city of Fayetteville is trumpeting it's quite a stunning achievement actually to have all these wildlife habitats certified in the city, or parks, a lot of yards and things. But then the next thing we do is we basically enshrine into ordinance allowing cats to roam in the city of Fayetteville. So the only thing about this, the only thing we want to do is to just amend the ordinance with about 2 or 3 lines that makes it clear without any question that if people set up cat colonies, the cats have to be confined. And how they're confined is a matter of discussion. And we have some suggestions about how that can be done. But if people want to keep 25 cats as a colony, they've got to have a facility that will keep those 25 cats confined in some way. In other words, they won't be allowed to roam.
Now, it's my understanding that we're not creating feral cat colonies, we're managing ones that already exist. Is that correct?
That's
Right.
That's the idea.
It's not a creation of new colonies. It's a method to control the colonies that exist currently. And by doing the trapping, neutering, and return and sterilization, then as the cycle continues, then those colonies will eventually disappear.
Well, Yolanda, would you like to give your presentation or perspective on the issue? And then we'll
I'll return
have a
to
discussion.
I'll return to the.
Does it matter?
Well, you can stay at the table.
Okay. All right.
Just all have a discussion.
The existing ordinance does contain a requirement that animals, there's a leash law, and cats are not to be allowed out roaming free. But we do have existing feral cat colonies all over the city. And at this time, if there are complaints, if challenges do occur, then we do go out and we capture the feral cats. And of course, the only option is to euthanize, because we normally can't adopt out those cats. So there were folks out there that wanted to establish, well, they wanted to be able to care for the animals that are already out there. So we're not creating new colonies, we're just providing a method for those folks to be able to care for the animals, to make sure that they're sterilized, that they're vaccinated, and the idea is that there will no longer, eventually they will die out. It might take, we're not sure, it might take 5 years, it might take only 4 years, because we would have individuals capturing the new kittens and putting those up for adoption, so they're not out there. And then if you're getting all of the cats neutered and sterilized, I mean, eventually we won't have the feral cat.
You understand, what I'm talking about is not to change any of that. It's just to require that whatever's there, however it got there, that the cats can't roam. Whether they're individually owned, like an individual owner who just has a cat, or if somebody decides to adopt a cat colony, the only change we're asking for, we're not asking to change the ordinance. That's all. I understand the logic behind what you're saying, and we discussed it. The only thing we're just saying is they've got to be confined in some way. Either fenced in, or a facility, or something that doesn't allow them to move outside of that colony, nor for other cats to join the colony.
So,
that's all. That's the only language. I'm sorry.
If there is a feral cat colony, say existing in the woods behind my house, how would you suggest that I contain that colony?
If you go through the process, which is which is quite a process that the city set up in the ordinance, and you trap all the cats and you get them vaccinated and neutered, which are all appropriate activities. Then as you get them, they need to be confined.
And what would
somewhat.
that confinement look like?
Well, there's a lot of possibilities. One of them would be a fence that they can't escape from, a fenced area that you're responsible for. One person who's on our Audubon board, who's also a cat lover, she has 9 cats that she's taken in, that she's gotten them all for her property, and she's got them all in a room in her house. So I'm not advocating, there are all these different things. What we're just saying is that the only way to deal with the problem of feral cat predation on wildlife in the city of Fayetteville is to not allow them to do it. And so there are a lot of ways you could do this. Actually quite a few different ways. But the idea is that the ordinance that permits and manages cat colonies also requires that the cats be confined.
Now, can I just say one thing, that to this point, we have not had anyone step up to take advantage of this ordinance. So we currently do not have anyone.
And how long has the ordinance been in effect, y'all?
Oh, let's see, this went into effect last year, and we haven't had any interest.
So this is the perfect time to make a modest change in it, so that if somebody does, and it'd be a very generous act, in my opinion, if they actually take all this on, because it's a huge job if they take it on.
Well, that's actually a good point. How do you anticipate such a requirement would affect people's willingness to participate in the program and meet these other requirements?
They're not going to do it. They're not going to do it.
Well, let's take some public comments. If you just raise your hand, and if you would like to, please come up to, we have to use these microphones so that people that are watching can hear us. And if you'll introduce yourself. And
Where do you want it?
They're right here.
Here?
At the end, right there. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, and please limit your comments to about 3 minutes.
Not a problem. My name is Terry Phelan. I'm here with the Audubon people. I straddle both worlds. I have been a cat owner continuous cat owner since 1985, and a longtime cat lover. But I also appreciate the indigenous wildlife we have, and the ordinance is in place, and it's public policy, done deal, all right? But I was hoping that the Environmental Action Committee of the city would support an ordinance change, this minor language that would prevent colonies from roaming at will. I have got research that shows that the issue is the roaming, okay? It's cats are going, they have a effect, they're predators, they have an effect on wildlife, and there's solid research that shows that recent research, this is the perfect time to make an ordinance change that would make the ordinance that more compatible with the city's wildlife conservation efforts and the certification. I do not believe cat colonies, if they come about, need to circumvent the leash laws. And I personally, 2 years ago, and I'm not going to go into details, but I had a very, very negative, horrendous, tremendous, painful situation with a roaming cat jumping the fence, getting into my yard, and my cats do not roam. They do not roam, but they jumped into my yard and mauled at that time, my oldest cat to death. It was not. It was aside from the monetary investment I had in that animal and the expense of that event, you know, the love and the grief that goes with it, and that was because whether it was owned or unowned, I don't know, but it was a free roaming cat, And if cats are contained, if someone comes about and wants to establish a colony, and I disagree that this one change is not going to deter people from establishing a colony. There are other hurdles in the existing ordinance that make it a little bit greater challenge. So this one minor change to language that makes, if someone establishes a colony, makes them responsible of confining the cats in that colony, I think it's actually to the benefit of those cats, because
your time is about up.
Okay, all right. Okay, bottom line is that the animal caretakers, if a colony is activated, colony caretakers are obligated to trap the animals for vaccinations and medication. I think having them confined to one location, that would be easier to give them the medical treatment they need when they need it. Because as someone with personal experience on trapping animals, cats are smart, they're wily, and they're not that easy to trap. It would ensure that any kittens born are in a confined location so they can be socialized and find forever homes. And if the way the ordinance is, cats, if a colony exists, cats, the whole return policy with the roaming, if the caretaker has to, or is obligated, is one of the responsibilities is to set out traps and trap the animals on regular basis, right? Well, what if something happens to that caretaker, and having the animals in a confined location, I think is safer and more humane for those animals.
Thank you. Would anyone else care to speak?
Sorry.
Get out of my chair. If we're creating natural habitat through this habitat certification program in Fayetteville, it doesn't make sense to have something that's going to clean out the animals we're trying to encourage in that habitat. Now, it's estimated that cats kill 2.5 billion birds a year. Now, that's more than the previous estimate, and I'll tell you why it's more than the previous estimate. Previous estimates were made on sample areas where cats bring in and lay on your doorstep some of the prey that they're getting. Well, it turns out they put cameras on cats so they could see how many they were actually catching compared to how many they dropped on doorsteps, and only 1/3 of their catch was dropped on doorsteps. So that accounts for the higher estimate of birds killed. In fact, those birds, all except the starling pigeon and the house sparrow, are protected by federal law. So those cats are in, people that have colonies that are letting cats go and kill birds in nature are obeying the two federal laws. One is the Migratory Bird Act, the other is the Endangered Species Act. Now, the Endangered Species Act would be less a threat unless they were in an area where there was an endangered species. But all birds are protected except the ones across the United States, except the ones I mentioned. So
Should mention, this is Doug James at University of Arkansas.
Okay.
And he's been teaching at U of A in zoology since 1953. So what he's saying about the bird business is well established in the literature.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, I teach both ornithology and mammalogy. We cover cats in mammalogy. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Would anyone else care to speak?
Marcia Donnelly. I just had a few things to say. I think it might be helpful to sort of look at feral cats as an entirely different species than tame cats. I mean, they're like raccoons or squirrels. I mean, to talk about confining them with fences and stuff is just unrealistic. I mean, the impetus for making TNR legal is to reduce the number of feral cats. I mean, feral cats are the result of irresponsible humans, releasing them. And now estimates are there's as many unowned or feral cats as there are owned cats in any given city in the United States. So, I mean, it's a problem. It's there. I mean, there's two ways to deal with it. You can try to kill them all, or you can try to, there's birth control and there's death control. I mean, and for years, we've tried to kill them here in Fayetteville, and it doesn't work. I mean, there's a lot of cats out there. I don't know, 20,000? What do you think? I mean,
A lot.
it would cost thousands and thousands of dollars to go kill them all. And and that's not a realistic solution. I think by trying to tap into the community's goodwill and get individuals to trap and neuter and return them is really the only, it's difficult too, but it's the only really realistic approach. I mean, habitat, I think we all know that habitat destruction is like, that's the big thing with the birds. I mean, here, and the places where they migrate to, it's just, things aren't good for the birds. I also read a few years ago in the Cornell, they do that Christmas birdwatch thing, right? I think they're pretty well respected bird.
Christmas bird count or
Yeah.
Project Feeder Watch? There's
Is
a
that
lot of
Cornell University bird thing?
Yeah, Feeder Watch might be the one you're talking about.
I read on their website a few years ago that cat perdition probably kills as many birds as flying into tall buildings. So, I mean, so that's kind of what I have to say.
Thank you.
I would like to also mention that when we had I'm sorry.
You just
Okay.
needed it.
Well, I just wanted to add that Marcia's worked really hard on the the neuter pets front, which is really important, and I'm one of the supporters of that too.
Well, thank you, Joe. And really, we're trying to reduce, I mean, we're both shooting for the same thing. We're trying to reduce the number of cats that are out there so they don't eat the birds. I'm totally down with that. I just think that this is the most cost-effective and realistic way to deal with that. And sadly, it would be wonderful if they could be confined, but I just don't think that's realistic. Most colonies are like behind the mall. I mean, how are you going to build a fence behind the mall? Or, I mean, it's just
Thank you, Marcia. Is there any other further public comment?
I have a question. Go ahead.
Oh, no, sorry, Ruth had, I called on Ruth. Sorry, Dave.
Can I ask a question about this process?
Mm-hmm.
So, after the discussion, then what, I mean, are you guys going to, what do you do on this topic? Do you
We could elect to make a recommendation to the council if we decided that was something that we wanted to do.
Okay, I wasn't exactly sure how this committee fell into the process in terms of changing the ordinance. So, are you open to receiving copies of studies and reports that show that TNR is not particularly effective, and other information that's from not any.
I believe that all factual data would be appreciated and considered by the group. But Ruth.
Well, I just wanted to point out that birds are not the cats are not the major killers of birds. I deplore that cats kill birds. I truly do. Some dogs kill birds. I hear people brag about their dog being so fast they can kill a bird, and so obviously they've seen them do it. Yep. And hunters kill birds. Other wildlife kills birds. Snakes, skunks, raccoons, other birds kill birds. Air and water pollution kills millions of birds annually. Cell towers, the other technology requiring towers kill millions of birds a year, songbirds a year. Drought kills birds. Being environmentalists, I'm sure that you are probably also pursuing the other problems, the habitat loss, which is due to population overpopulation. I don't think there's a whole lot that this committee can do about that, but it's an issue that also should be looked at, because it's not just cats killing the birds, it's all of these things. It's drought, it's all the other forms of pollution we have, it's wildlife. All of these things are killing lots of birds. We can't control drought, we can't control the weather so far. We can't control these things. And I don't see how we can, as Marcia was saying, I don't see how we can control the feral cat population other than just constantly doing the TNR thing. I understand the problems, I really do. As I said, I deplore that cats kill birds, but I also deplore these other ways they're dying. So I hope you're going to address other issues and be objective about that as you are about as enthusiastically as you are pursuing the cats.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? David, did you? David was next.
I'm David Orr. I wasn't even aware this was on the agenda for tonight, but I actually have some pretty strong feelings about it. I was really taken aback last fall when I read in the newspaper that the council had passed this, because I think that, especially given the comments that I've heard so far, that it pretty well confirms in my mind my immediate reaction to the story, which was that I think that this is a very complex issue, and I think that the council acted on it without giving serious consideration to a lot of the circumstances, especially relating to wildlife impacts. One of the things that I want to emphasize really troubles me about it is that I think that this ordinance, the way it was written, or at least the way it was portrayed in the newspaper, was that it sends a mixed message to the public. It says, we want you to confine your cats, but we also want to allow for feral cats to live in unconfined spaces, and that's the policy of the city of Fayetteville. What I'm hearing is that no one stepped forward in the last 6 months or 5 months since the measure was passed to really get involved in this. So I wonder, it seems to me that some information and facts need to be brought to the public to inform us, like, okay, so we passed it. Is anyone doing anything about it? Is this going to affect it? I have a lot of concerns about cats killing birds, and I know that there are a lot of people who have very well cared for cats that let their cats roam around, and I don't see the city, even doing any education about that. I do feel that it's a really sad irony that we talk about wildlife habitat as being a major feature of this city's environmental program, but yet we don't lift a finger to educate people about how cats, no matter how well fed at home, are out there killing birds every day. And so when we're failing to do that education, and then we add an ordinance that basically says that we don't care that cats are out there, we're missing out on opportunity. And I don't have an opinion on the specifics of the ordinance or the specifics of the amendment, because I haven't studied it. But I do think that the city needs to look for some more consistent messaging about what is our policy towards promoting good, functional, ecologically sound wildlife habitat and conservation of that habitat, and what is our policy about leash law, and how do we square this feral cat policy with trying to, and the mixed message that we're sending people, residents who don't confine their cats, we let feral cats run wild. Why should your pet cat not run wild? Thanks.
Thank you, David.
Can I say something? Sure. The Animal Services Advisory Board reviewed this topic for over a year, and those meetings are public and open to all. So discussion of the trap, neuter, return went on for over a year. And the colonies, again, are there. And we're not trying to confuse folks with domestic cats being contained, because we do have folks that do let their cats out, and things do happen. We get calls, we trap them, and if people come back, and they do pick up their cats most of the time. But this was discussed, and we work very hard, Animal Services works very hard to educate people about the dangers of allowing their animals to roam free, because there are fights, they do get hit by cars, there are many dangers, and we are out there trying to educate. We have education on the website, we have a newsletter, so the city is doing everything that it can to educate everyone about the leash law. We have the advisory board, the Animal Services Advisory Board, which is open, and it's also on the government channel. And the cats are there. This ordinance did not automatically bring feral cats to Fayetteville. They are there. This was a method to try and reduce that population and hopefully eliminate it at some point.
I'd like to add, I would be remiss and in trouble with Terry Lane for not mentioning this, but you mentioned the education program the city does, but the Habitat Conservation Program also is part of their Habitat Certification Project. Educates the public about the issues related to allowing your pet cats to roam free and their potential damage to habitat and to bird populations as well. So there's the education piece is people are getting hit from the city and from the Habitat Conservation Program.
Thank you. Alan?
Well, my name's Alan Lung, Ward 4 City Council. I just kind of wanted to address how this did come forward, because we did start this conversation back in 2009 in the Animal Services Advisory Board when Eva Madison was chair. I shortly thereafter took over chairing that committee. In 2012, back in March, I had a conversation with Brenda on the City Council, and I said, Brenda, we have been talking about this since 2009, and we've been hitting a brick wall every time because there's a leash law in Fayetteville, so we can't address the feral cat population. And so we talked about setting up a rubric by which nonprofits could follow, as they do in other cities across the United States, that would allow, under a certain set of strict guidelines, for colonies to be managed, and so that people could manage the decline of a feral cat population. I think this suggestion, and I'm just going to tell you this as food for thought, because it's some questions I'm going to ask if it does come to the council, is this suggestion is more talking about creating colonies, whereas the ordinance we have in effect right now talks more about dealing with existing colonies. This ordinance has a return policy, so it doesn't create any more impact on the environment. So the net outcome should be a positive for the environment after that. I don't think that this would be an ordinance change or qualify as one, because it basically eliminates all the provisions in the ordinance, but I think this would have to be a completely new ordinance. So I think you would be discussing repealing the old one. This ordinance does require the people that care for the animals to be the ones that trap them, neuter them, and return them back to their origin, because the city doesn't have funds to, like we've talked about, go into the city and trap all the feral cats that exist. And those people aren't going to participate in any type of program that would in any way lead toward euthanasia. And so that's kind of why we went in the direction we did, because it's a complaint-based system, and the nuisance section of our ordinances Chapter 92 on animal care stay in place. And that was really important to me because I was not, when I came on the Animal Services Board, an advocate for TNR. But after really studying it for 3 years before I had this conversation with a city council member, I came to believe that it was the best way to address it. I just think that we should treat cats as humanely as we do birds. And I think the ordinance we have in place does that. I just would like to see it have a chance to work. But those are just some food for thought for your discussion, just some questions I'll ask when it comes to council, and just a little bit of background to why I brought it forward back last year.
Thank you, Alan.
I've got to ask a question.
Yeah.
Did I just, I mean, I feel like I wasted my time when I tried to make the point that we support the ordinance.
Mm.
What we want is a modest change so that if people decide to manage a cat colony, that they also have to confine those cats. They can't do all the things that the ordinance has established and then just turn them loose.
Well,
so that's not about writing a new ordinance. And I'll tell you, I really have to beg to differ with you. I honor the work that you guys have done, and everybody's been involved in it, because I know we're all wrestling with the same issue and coming from different perspectives, and it's really an honorable thing. We're talking about 2 lines to the existing ordinance so that once cats have been trapped and neutered and vaccinated, they're not released back to the wild. That's all. That's not a new ordinance. It's not even changing the presence of the cat colonies.
And it doesn't create new...
Okay, excuse me.
Okay, so that's it.
Thank you.
I have.
Is there any further public comments? If not, I think that we should just convene as a group, and if you guys would... Oh, Aubrey?
If we may, while we've got some Audubon people here, ask them a question about Buffalo River issues. There are at least two major things on the Buffalo River going on right now. And have any, as chairman of the Northwest Audubon, Dr. James.
And as the person that organized the first meeting ever of the Ozark Society at the meeting, we are concerned about the pig farm in the watershed of the Buffalo River.
And I would like to hear that, but in keeping with our agenda, let's finish this discussion, and then I think it would be appropriate to hear some comments on that.
About remedial actions that are being taken for these other threats to birds that were mentioned previously here?
Sure.
Okay.
Quickly, because we are about 15 minutes behind schedule.
All right. A lot of birds hit towers, particularly migratory birds at night, because in the daytime they can see the towers. They don't hit them. So there's been a massive study on where to position towers and what kind of lights to put on towers that is very successful in achieving a reduction in number of birds that strike towers. There's also the wind turbines, and they kill about 300,000 birds a year. That's not, and the towers, before remedial action, kill about 27 million a year. The turbines about 300,000 a year, and they've also developed technology that avoids bird strikes on those big turbines. Windows, 550 million birds a year. There are now windows that birds don't hit. There's several different technologies, several different approaches to designing windows that birds do not see what birds see is a reflection of the woods in the window, and they try to fly into the woods, and that's how they get knocked out. But in fact, there's a contractor's going to put across from my house on Duncan a 5-story apartment complex, and he's going to put all bird-safe windows into that apartment complex.
Okay.
And so that's...
Well, thank you.
Those three things together don't kill nearly as many birds as cats do, 22 and
Okay, well, I think we need to bring this back to the group. Do we have any comments from our group? Is there any action you would?
I do have a question. I mean, if we do propose keeping them in an enclosure, I mean, this can sound far-fetched, but anything short of a dome, enclosed dome, is not going to keep birds from going into that enclosure. So how much of a protection is it really going to be? I mean, just to play devil's advocate a little bit, I mean, because you're going to get all sorts of wildlife coming through there, rats, snakes, birds coming over the top.
And I would wonder, are we destroying habitat? Are we?
When you see a cat.
Are we then interfering with other wildlife habitat by locking them out of that enclosed area?
Yeah. But are you are you being serious?
Well, no, it's an honest question.
Is it, what, you asking me the question?
No, general.
We're having this discussion.
Yeah.
Okay, we need to maintain order, and let's just have only members of the Environmental Action Committee at this table. So if you want to return to your seat, thank you. Your comments are appreciated. So let's, did you have a question?
Are there other cities in our area that practice this similar plan? Are we looking at another model? Both of them. It seems that our TNR has been successful, but looking at what this plan will be, but looking at the enclosure option, and I'm just coming in from off Little Rock, 30 minutes late, so sorry.
That's okay.
But are we modeling this off another city, or is this a test plan specifically for our location, for our residents?
I can't specifically answer that, but I can say that I worked at a old warehouse in an old area of Portland, Oregon for 2.5 years, and we had a feral cat colony living there, and two of the employees that I worked with, who are my coworkers, had adopted that feral cat colony, and they had worked with the local Humane Society to trap all of them, get them all neutered, and then they would feed them every day and take care of them. So I know it's being done in some other cities. I'm sure Alan maybe could answer what research they did when they were developing the ordinance.
All right.
And this is actually modeled after an existing program.
Well, I think in the effort of moving along, that what we should do is, should we compile a list of questions we would like answered before we consider this further at a future meeting, and that way we can get some data. Or did you have a comment?
Well, my notes, I'm looking at some things I wrote down. First thing I wrote down was fugitive cat. Okay, I'm trying to visualize the local visible cat. Okay, just go with me a minute on this. Here I am in the city limits of Fayetteville, and there is some cat. Is there a problem there? Do people see a problem with that?
You mean just a single cat roaming on the street?
See a cat. No problem?
I wouldn't think, unless
it's black, people go freaking.
It's the local visible cat. Okay. I'm sorry, I just want to start at the beginning. So I'm looking at this cat. The city ordinance, what does it have to say about this cat? There's no problem because there's no complaint, correct?
Normally, yes, that is
there is no complaint. It's a cat.
It is complaint driven.
Good. That helps me a lot. Action. We're an environmental action committee. And so I think we need to think about what kind of action is possible based on these premises we're looking at here. What can we recommend beyond the ordinance that's already there? Action against the local visible cat. Nothing. I mean, it's just okay. Unless a citizen complains about it. And it looks like the ordinance has enough meat in it from what pre-existed and what was added to deal with these issues, if the process is correctly pursued. I don't think we have responsibility to try to cover every eventuality. Just my opinion.
Well, what would you guys like to do as a group? Do you want to take a period of research and study and revisit the issue, or I would entertain a motion to take some action?
I'm going to table it by 1 month.
Table it by 1 month?
Come up
Okay.
with questions, yeah.
Right.
Second that.
You'll second that? Okay. Alan?
I'd just like to suggest, I'm not trying to jump in your meeting here, but the Animal Services Board meets the second Monday of every month at 6 p.m. at City Hall, and that would give you all time to collaborate with that committee also, if you would like to do a group collaborative effort, since it does involve animal ordinances, and that's where most of those recommendations come from. It might be a great opportunity for the Environmental Action Committee to partner with the Animal Services Board.
Thank you.
It meet every other month.
Okay, every other month.
April is their on month. So
Okay.
So that'd be the second Monday of April?
second Monday of April at 6 p.m. room 111.
I think it's a good idea.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion to table this for 1 month, and hopefully that will give us some time to collect some data, make contact with the Animal Services Group and coordinate with them. Is there any other public comment on that motion specifically? Okay. Any comment from the group? All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. We'll table that. Okay, moving along. Support for the local food ordinance. Peter.
Yeah, so tomorrow night, I am bringing a resolution in front of City Council that essentially asks the council to support the mayor's proposal for city staff to study urban agriculture and local foods and make recommendations on changes to city code that would promote citizens' ability to grow their own food, to have more farm animals in the city. Tomorrow night's resolution is only a resolution of intent. It does not change at all what the current codes are or ordinances are related to animals or zoning or anything. All it does is direct city staff to assemble a group of stakeholders and request that these specific changes be brought back in a time period that I'm estimating is somewhere within 6 months. You may have seen there was an article in the newspaper that Joe Walsh wrote on Sunday. It was a very excellent written article. It summarized the topic very well. And the only other thing I would add is this two-step process where we're first asking the council for their buy-in or their on the front end before we make any recommendations is a process that's worked well for us in the past. It was used during the energy code revisions, and it's been used in some previous efforts. And so what I was hopeful that we could get from the Environmental Action Committee tonight was a vote in support of that resolution. And then tomorrow when I present the resolution to City Council, Ms. Marsh can stand up and say, last night we discussed this at the Environmental Action Committee and they voted either to support it or not to support it.
I've got a question. How do you convey what has been established with some of these protective covenants in the subdivisions and so forth?
Excellent question.
I remember moving to town with some chickens one time, and it was okay to have a certain number of chickens in this neighborhood where we ended up staying. The neighbors didn't think it was so great, but it was okay to do it.
Right. So my understanding of the way covenants operate is they are above and beyond what city code says. So, for example, right now, city code says that you can have up to 4 chickens in a 4 hens in a single family residential zoned area in your side yard or in your backyard. But you may have covenants in your subdivision that say, farm animals are absolutely forbidden, and so then you would be forbidden from having...
Those would trump.
That would trump
anything
the city says, yeah. And you would risk whatever the penalties are associated with your title if you did not obey by whatever those covenants say. My understanding is we don't have the ability to, affect those in any way. All we can do is affect those areas that are outside covenants. So, excellent question.
Anything else from the group?
I mean, it sounds great. I know I talked to...
Be in favor.
Yeah. I talked to Dean Adams about starting Ward 4 community gardens, so I think this could only help that. So.
Yeah, community gardens are definitely part of the conversation.
And I wonder if it's appropriate to that conversation, subject near and dear to my heart, that we haven't really grasped a name for it, but they are subdivisions which haven't been completed, which comprise some pretty nice areas of land and some fairly decent access to it as well, which are having to be maintained or not. Seems like that might be something to tag along with this. There would be a way to begin a discussion, a conversation about that.
It could definitely be. I would caution though that we have limited ability to affect or to, well, I mean, we can collaborate with what happens on private property, but establishing gardens through the city on private property is a little bit more difficult. But we could definitely, potentially enable that to happen. If there's anything that precluded it from happening by city code, we'd certainly be able to look at that. And
so the idea would be that it's property that the city owns? Okay.
That we can have much more, that the city has much more ability to affect in terms of what physically is on the property.
Do we have any public comment on this? On supporting our local foods ordinance? Big thumbs up from David. Noted. Okay. All right. Well, I would entertain a motion if we want to support this.
Yeah, I'll go for that.
Move to pass the acclamation.
All right. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Excellent. And then also, what type, do we want to play an active role in helping to formulate this policy? And I would think that we would.
Sure. We're assembling a group of stakeholders. We're assuming this is going to pass tomorrow night, and assembling that group of stakeholders. And if someone on this group would like to be a part of that session, I'm obviously, a stakeholder in it, and part of the conversation I can regularly bring back and keep you guys abreast of what's going on. But if someone else wants to be at the table with us when we're making those decisions, feel free to let me know, and we can include you in that discussion.
Thank you, Peter.
Sure.
Okay, something that I had wanted to talk about is we have Peter and Sarah Lewis had put together a list of goals and topics for the EAC for 2013, and then I had added to that list, and now would be a good time to switch to the slideshow, in terms of...
Any new batteries, maybe?
Uh-oh.
Is there a printed agenda?
There's not. We were trying to save paper for the Environmental Action Committee. But it is online.
Peter, you can take the batteries out, rub the ends on your britches.
Yeah, I think I had it on sleep so long that it...
Last time I checked your website, it still has it has the wrong meeting time and date.
And I put in a request to get that changed, but I'll thank you for... When did you look, David?
It was about 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
In fact, I came to the meeting last week that didn't exist.
Sorry about that.
And while we're on this, I'd like to ask that there be some easier way to get information than because a lot of that information is just not up to date.
I did the same thing trying to find the published agenda for tonight's meeting on Access Fayetteville page, and this meeting was not even on Access Fayetteville page is happening tonight.
Okay.
Much less a breakdown of what was going to happen.
Okay.
Or something.
So y'all have, some outreach needs to be done.
Okay.
I'll follow up with the city clerk on that after this meeting. You sent me a note last week about that, and I put in a request, but that may not have been made yet, but I'll
searched the newspapers too. Bill could probably answer that one, but it wasn't, I couldn't find this meeting in the newspaper either.
I'm only here because it was in the newspaper.
Okay.
But see, that's the only reason I'm here.
Yeah, I think that with the new meeting time, we just have, somehow it hasn't been updated through all of our outlets. But if you want to follow my City Council Facebook page, I do try to put the agenda on that. I believe that's how you guys found it. And we'll make a better effort to make sure that it gets up with appropriate notice next week.
Could I just ask, maybe email it out to people, because I kind of quit doing Facebook, and I think there's probably a lot of people that got tired of it too.
I do not have an email list for the public.
We have one for the members.
We have one for the members, and it did come out via the members. Maybe we could add a,
could I
for
suggest
people
that
who
it's public,
subscribe.
it ought to all be public information, and it ought to all be incumbent upon the city to make sure that everyone who's interested is getting that information on a real-time basis. That would be good practice, I think. Yeah,
and it typically is through our Access Fayetteville. For some reason this month it didn't. So I apologize for that, and we'll make sure that happens next time.
If y'all are sending out stuff among yourselves, that if there's people like me that want to also be on the list, that would be, that ought to be okay too, so that I don't have to go chase a website that may not even be being updated.
Right.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think we'll get the website updated, and I'm not sure what's going on. Technology's failing.
The technology is failing us.
Yeah, I mean, I have it back here on the on the little screen. I can read them off.
Well, I've got a printed copy. Bad me, I printed something on recycled paper.
I wish I had it printed back out.
Okay, so there are a lot of goals and topics on this list, and I guess what I would like us to do is just narrow it down to a few that we feel really passionate about that we would like to take some action on this year, or in the near future. So just maybe make a note of a few of your favorite things, and then let's talk about them. So some of the potential goals: reduce styrofoam use in restaurants and reduce plastic bag use. Develop a policy for reclamation of partially completed or foreclosed developments and underutilized parking in Fayetteville. Impact fees for stormwater management in new developments and providing incentives for low-impact development techniques. Speaking up at all meetings related to projects that affect the Enduring Green Network. Maintain Fayetteville's community wildlife habitat certification and green infrastructure workshops. How can EAC learn more about environmental and water protection and achieve better enforcement of construction water pollution laws within the city? Comprehensive multimodal sustainable transportation plan. Support for food policy, which I believe we can say that we are doing that now.
Checkbox by that one.
Recycling and solid waste education, support, and outreach. Open burning. Urban forester report about canopy loss. Utilize regularly scheduled city council tour time, which those are every Monday at 4:30. Residential and commercial energy codes, and a drainage criteria manual. HERS rating disclosures on all properties at the point of sale or rent, and that's the Home Energy Rating Score. Compliance with Dark Skies Initiative. And we may have an ordinance for that on the books, but it might need strengthening or better enforcement.
Yeah, we do have, I did look at that today, we do have
an
ordinance. It's not called Dark Skies Ordinance, but we do have a lighting ordinance.
Okay, so maybe that would be something we would look at. Plastics reduction program to include plastic bag ban and nominal charge for paper bags, non-recyclable, biodegradable takeout container ban, and working with local businesses such as grocery stores to reduce packaging. Improve maintenance of existing sidewalks, waste inventory of local businesses and manufacturing facilities, enhance recycling services, especially plastics, a better smoking ban, improve stormwater management to reduce flooding events, especially in South Fayetteville. And then something else I would like to add would be improve construction and demolition waste recycling. So, what do you guys
all
think?
in 1 year?
No, this is the long list that we want to narrow down to just a couple of priorities.
Yeah, and some of those were learning items, like the low impact development manual. I think was a learning item. It was about the middle of the list, and there was another one right above that, Sarah, that I think also maybe had a learning item beside it that we did some learning on at January's meeting.
lost in this long list?
Well, we've had some really good meetings where we got discussions going about various recycling issues.
Mm-hmm.
Not the issues so much as the items, the actual items. There's it's an interesting maze of things to consider, but I think that's high value to, like, you're bringing up styrofoam use, and the interplay between the markets for things is sort of one pole of it as I see it. The marketing and the marketability of a commodity such as glass, what have you. The other pole I see as the reduction in use, to create an environment of understanding about how important it is just to reduce. People have their favorite things to reduce, but any reduction is a great benefit.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Kind of like upstream detention, so to speak.
Agree with that. What other comments?
I mean, my favorite initiative is still styrofoam plastic bag use. Remember, you talked about when you came from Portland, and you were like, that's so crazy that we have styrofoam and food being carried on styrofoam and like styrofoam like flying down the road. But I mean, I know it's a much bigger issue than that. We're working at that at the university level, and I would like to be able to work on that this year and next year too. So.
And I think now would be a really good time with that, because I know Alderman Petty is working on developing guidelines and regulations to expand the mobile food businesses, which are great in many ways, but one of the unfortunate consequences of those is the takeout containers that are created, and so maybe we could work with them to help them find a better solution for that aspect of that ordinance.
Some of the old solutions really work there. The Chinese takeout little box.
Cardboard that's
You can get a lot of pork lo mein in one of those.
Yeah. Styrofoam is one of those ones that, I mean, like I said, I was taken aback by the amount of styrofoam in Fayetteville when we moved back here last summer, and I really feel like it's one of those items that if we can take a carrot rather than a stick approach in terms of trying to encourage people to use and offer less styrofoam to their customers rather than trying to, pass legislation that says thou shalt not.
Yeah, I was thinking
that we probably would have a whole lot more.
Well, the same can go with the recycling. I've had some neighbors that I've actually talked into recycling, and they've gone from the biggest container available down to the smallest, and just the money you save on a monthly basis. I mean, sometimes you'll get more reaction out of people if you're hitting their pocketbook straight on.
And I know from a construction and demolition waste side, we're not doing very good at dealing with our construction site waste at all. And it impacts private developers, and it makes it harder for them to get LEED credits, and it increases the cost of disposing of that waste. So I think waste reduction and better waste recycling would be a really good topic to focus on in the near future.
Yeah, you could mention that the city is involved in construction waste collection and transport. They want to be the primary player in that, as I understand it. I think that's correct. A decent assumption that isn't there something, a rule of some kind that you should use a certain vendor's containers when you're doing a construction project?
I'm not 100% clear on all the rules, and the city essentially has I don't like to use the word monopoly, but for lack of a better word, a monopoly on residential solid waste and recycling. But then when it gets to the larger commercial accounts, the market is open. The city offers a service, but there are other haulers in town that offer solid waste and recycling services. And I would assume that the same would be true for construction and demolition.
I think that might be worth, you might be in an arena where you could ask that question. Seems like I do remember that there's requirement of certain uses this certain vendor if you're doing a construction remodel job that's getting permitted here. And if so, then that looks like an interesting pressure point where you might be able to apply some requirements about reduction and reuse if you have that leverage already.
What I've seen other communities do is as part of the development process that documenting of construction debris and waste and showing that, you know, a minimum amount of it, say 50%, 75%, was diverted from the landfill and in some way recycled, was a requirement of your of going through the whole development process. So before your project got the final, you know, sign off and final plat or certificate of occupancy or whatever, you had to have proved that you met that recycling criteria.
Peter, do you know, has there been a waste audit of local industries? Do we know what we're throwing away?
You know, there's been the University of Arkansas has done some audits. I know that the school district has done a couple of cafeteria audits. I don't know of any that have been done, any local industries. That's not to say that it hasn't happened. I'm just not aware of them.
You know, I'm thinking from an economic development and job creation standpoint, if we were to identify some of these resources that we're throwing away and help maybe work with the Chamber of Commerce to attract new markets to do something with it, you know, and turn this waste stream into a revenue stream, I think that would be a good topic for us to take on. And, you know, I would really like to see us look for ways that we can improve our environment and our economy at the same time. I think that would be a good goal.
So would the group be interested in hearing from maybe a technical expert, either city staff or elsewhere, at our next meeting on the topic of sort of what the status of construction and demolition waste is right now? Is that...
Well, and I think not just construction and demolition, but I would also like to know, you know, kind of what percentage of plastics we have. If we could just kind of get an overall idea of what is our waste problem, what does it look like,
okay.
And maybe from that point we could start looking at, you know, where is the volume, what is the most harmful.
Where's the biggest opportunity for improvement, and what you go after? I could certainly talk with Brian Pugh, City's solid waste reduction coordinator. He's often been to this group many times.
Been to this meeting many times.
Yeah.
More times than I've been here.
We did.
So one of the questions I keep coming up against, and it might sound to you kind of like the cat question, but I'm fascinated by the idea of when does it become waste, and at what are the parameters of the city's either desire to be in charge of it or their mandate? How is the city think of the problem of waste? I mean, if I decide to buy something, like I go buy an enormous plastic play set for the backyard, and then my kids grow up, and then I have this, whose is it? Like, does the city wonder if I'm going to throw that away someday and they're going to have to deal with it? I'm real interested in that first take on, like, your construction.
It's a chain of custody, essentially.
Yeah. If I have made that terrific blunder of buying all that sequestered carbon, maybe, I don't know what you would call that stuff.
Hopefully it's a recycled Coke bottles.
It's not.
Where I go with it, though, is we want to talk about transparency and the direction it goes. That seems to be a strong desire that we have, you know, and we don't want it to go to some country because we know they're not going to be as fastidious about the trail as we are. So it occurs to me, like, what do we care if it goes away? What are the levels of our desire about the waste that we have in front of us? If we put it in the landfill, is that transparency? It hasn't really gone away exactly. It's just been put out of sight. So those are some of the things I think about. Like, really, the styrofoam, well, if I think about the styrofoam, I can compress it into a very small shape. Then it becomes a product that maybe is marketable, maybe not. Same with plastic bags. Construction debris, that's massive. and there's some uses there. So I would like to be part of that conversation and bring those things up along as we go.
Okay, so I see waste as a big priority for us. What else?
I don't know, Peter, didn't we make a priorities for coming years back?
Transportation.
We did, Aubrey, and we reviewed that list while you were outside.
Good, y'all.
We were just talking about taking that big list and narrowing it down to...
Yeah. So Mike has
Bite-sized
suggested
items.
transportation, and I will second that, and I see David giving that a thumbs up, and I know the mayor is pushing on that.
Are we just choosing things we want to especially look at out of the list, or are we
I think so.
narrowing the list?
So some strategic focus, because, I mean, this is a long list, we can't do everything on here, but it would be great if we could check 3 or 4 of these boxes off in the next year and do them well. I don't know, what are your take on it?
Then take on another one from that point?
Yeah, and let's get moving. David, did you have a comment?
Well, yes, just a couple of things. One that I would like to, one suggestion I'd like to put before you is that the city of Fayetteville, I think, really has always had kind of a leadership role in the state of Arkansas, and I would like to encourage you to, especially as you think about how to prioritize, to maybe think about an overarching issue, and that is what should the city and what could the city be doing to address the prevention or the slowing of climate change. And there's a lot that we can do within our city borders to affect at least the urban heat island effect. And it seems to me that of those issues that you read out that I was able to copy down, that there's maybe a way to kind of organize what might seem to be kind of an unwieldy list under a rubric, and say, what can we do that we can kind of fit into an overall plan for where the committee's going. Like I came here 9 months ago with a suggestion that the city do something about open burning, and nothing was ever done about it. And I heard last month that Springdale passed an ordinance that says that any open burning you have to go and get a permit for. Now, that's Springdale. They're the
If I may, excuse me, Madam Chair, there is a rule here, but they give it to you on the phone or something. They come out only when there's a complaint, and the best thing we can do as individuals is if you smell smoke, go find the source of it now, and if it's somebody burning materials that are not legal to burn, or if the wind's blowing so it's level, call the police or fire department immediately.
Okay, but I'm talking about much more comprehensive.
Right.
That you weren't there when
I was here when you presented on it last year.
Yeah, and it's you're buried in this list, and that's why we're trying to figure out what to do next. You're on here.
So I'm just giving that as an example, and thank you for pointing that out. But as an example of how it doesn't need to be just off in its own little department, but it could be something that we're going to help public health, and we're going to reduce carbon loading in the atmosphere, and so I don't know. I just throw that out there as a suggestion because it also speaks to the transportation and the stormwater and the energy codes. I mean, all of those I think fit really under that rubric, and I think as an advocate for the environment, I'd like to see the city, make a statement, and I'd also like to see the city put some solar panels up on this. Can we power the city's buildings with solar energy,
or at least our new parking deck?
Well, don't get me started. We don't need more parking, we got too much
No, but
parking in
we-
this town.
we
But
have a
anyway,
parking
but I think, you know,
Okay.
so these are things that I would like to see us do, and maybe to put them into a framework. Thank you.
Well, I think what I would like to do is, if there's not any further general comments, I would like to just go around the group and, you know, if you just want to tell me your 2 hot priorities from this list. Do you want to start, Richard?
Well, I'm noticing that we still have guests, don't we? That we're going to comment.
Oh, do we have any guests that want to comment?
Gentlemen?
I'm still working on cats.
Like, I know what he's here for.
Well, responding to what he was having to say, I must, being on some other committees, I must point out that we are an advisory committee, and we work through rules of engagement, and we make agreements, and we come up with verbiage, but we really can't make the city do what you want. We really can't. We cannot create this rubric that you refer to. We can indulge in a conversation and we can make points, but we can't make it happen.
I understand
You get my point?
the council does this, but you're the advisory board on environmental policy to the council,
Right.
correct?
We bring up points and we make points and presentations.
And recommendations.
Yeah.
And that's all, I understand that.
Yeah. I just want to be careful to
But thank
point that out. I think I've already said my piece. The issues around recycling from the one end to the other.
Okay.
I see the paper bag, the plastic bag hanging on the bush over here on one end of it, and I see disappearing buildings going in dumpsters to the landfill, one after the other, almost instantaneously at the other end of it. I'm looking at structurally volume of material.
Mm-hmm.
I see things going away that could be used.
Okay, so...
Yeah, so to me, that's probably, I'll just take one.
Waste.
I'll do that one.
All right. Mike?
I'm on the same page with him with the waste recycling and the styrofoam all included in that, but I would like to throw in the transportation
Okay.
also.
All right. And...
When you say transportation, you know, I hear David say climate change. Yeah, all of this is in the guise of climate change.
Parking.
You say transportation.
Well,
that's a big topic too.
Well, let's do multimodal, like more.
Should we just say alternatives to the
Thank
automobile?
you. That's the word. I was blanking on alternative. Anything that would reduce the carbon footprint that we could do, be it buses, some sort of trolley system, which I know is probably a little far-fetched for right now, but you know, something in that general direction, and all the way down to bike trails, which I know we're on top of that really good anyway, but you know.
Right, now I guess I would say energy, just because, you know, there was that study recently that showed for every dollar we spend on energy, 97 cents leaves our state. So I think that's a big economic drain and certainly a contributor to global climate change, and then transportation and just really inclusive mobility and alternatives to the automobile.
My favorite is, of course, working with styrofoam and trying to help growing businesses, and especially our younger business owners, come with a better sustainable solution to package food and to be able to, you know, create an attitude that people want to hop on board with.
Thank you. Peter?
I'm going to sort of echo what we've already heard, but basically under the guise of it's what we're already working on in my department in sustainability and strategic planning, and that would be energy, specifically focusing on the city's use of energy and what we use at city buildings. I'm happy to report that our expenditures on electricity, water, and natural gas for 2012 were almost identical to what they were in 2011, which ends a steady upward trajectory. So that's a nice report, but we're continuing to work on that front. And so I think that work that we do in my department pairs well with what the mission of this group is, and I think that's why I'm assigned here. So energy is definitely one. We're also working to try to put some metrics to the 6 goals associated with City Plan 2030, which have to do with promoting infill, preventing sprawl, active transportation, attainable housing, a traditional town form, and I think there's one other that's escaping me right now. But basically building a livable, more livable community is what we're about. And we have 6 overarching goals, but we don't really have anything better than a gut check to say, yeah, this project kind of meets these goals, or no, this project doesn't meet these goals. And one of my goals is to try to give city staff and planners something more than a gut check to go with when evaluating a given transportation project or development project or park project or any kind of project, and say, yes, this meets with our larger goals, or no, this does not.
And I would say that's very important because, the best transportation plan is a good land use plan. And so adhering to that City Plan 2030 is going to be critical.
Yeah.
Aubrey, what are your 2 items?
I'm so interested in everything that I can't say things are my favorite, but the man we had here, I was sorry we kind of insulted the Audubon group. Joe Neal and Doug James wrote books together over the years. Doug's in his late 80s, or as he reached 90, he's still teaching at the university. So he's a resource I was thrilled to hear we're going to be here, but they got a little upset because the bird issue wasn't going so well with the cat people and so forth. And they thought they weren't being listened to enough. But they don't come to meetings because they're birding all the time and writing about it.
Well, I was hoping he was going to stick around and tell us about the Buffalo River issues.
But he's made the point in the past, Dr. James. It was at an Audubon meeting, where the headquarters on Spring, and 4 years ago or something, and asked him, Dr. James, what is the most important environmental concern? He said, overpopulation. And I said, well, what about climate change? That's a symptom of overpopulation. And so we always have to go back to the top of the chain here and say, styrofoam boxes, I try not to use them, but I almost invariably get forced to take one because they don't have any foil or a paper bag or just some little thing I can put something in I want to take home. So I do take them sometimes, and I don't like it. But there are all these levels, and everything you do in your life counts. And I don't think we can make an agenda for a year and say these are all only things we'll talk about during that time. I think we do have to be reactive. We can't plan the world and the changes that will be brought, the things that will be brought to the city during this coming year that we're at the moment trying to plan for. But you have to be ready and try to make sure you're not behind on your homework if you want to be able to comment on it. And with all the ways we can get information right now, some of the ladies that were in here and left, well, see, we never get this information. The city doesn't tell us enough. But there's 50 ways the city's telling you. But the average person does not have the ability to sort it out from all of those different ways. When it used to be the radio and the newspaper, before TV, everybody heard the same thing, and everybody knew the community news. So somehow we have to magically let them know that we are concerned and we're trying. But I don't think we can say this city's not putting out enough information, enough different ways, because the city's doing that right away.
Okay, Aubrey, so I've got overpopulation on here. But
well, let's just leave it there, because stuff's going to come up.
Well, and it's an important one, especially with the things going on in our Arkansas legislature right now that are diminishing people's ability to control their population.
And you're often, Sarah, told that, well, climate things, the overarching things, are not really within the city's venue. But then we have people come and say, yes, there's things we can do, and here's an expert to guide us that way, I think. And you have some professional training in those things, and there are resources to go the right way without overreaching a city's area of control, because we can't change the legislature. We can just try to influence them the way this committee tries to influence, and the way the citizenry came in tonight and tried to influence us to take a stand on something that we couldn't do much about.
All right. Just, Peter, do we actually have to be out of this room by 7?
We don't have to be out of this
Okay, all right. I just want to make sure that we still have time.
If I may, that's another thing. These meetings with 2 or sometimes 2.5 hours, there is, that limit does not exist. The meeting chairman controls. If you've got something going on that you consider important, you keep the meeting going as long as you have to.
Okay, yeah, I just try to be respectful of people's time. I know we're all overcommitted. So, all right, so we've got a good list of things that let's see. Peter, can you schedule someone from solid waste to come in and talk to us about waste, because that's clearly a topic that we want to look for.
And I definitely can, and I'll say, basically, there are probably opportunities for us to hear feedback from the Northwest Arkansas Regional Planning Commission on their, I forget if they're calling it a corridor analysis or an alternatives analysis that they're working on for basically the 4 major cities. That's something that I think will be ready next month, but maybe by midsummer or early fall we could hear some feedback on that. There might be something they're looking for support on in the transportation front.
Right. Because really what we have here is we've got a lot of issues surrounding waste or the resource life cycle, energy, planning, which is going to have a lot to do with transportation as well as wildlife preservation, and overpopulation. And then also I like this, the entrepreneurship idea that you mentioned. And so maybe as we look at these other problems, if we can identify opportunities for entrepreneurship within, in finding those solutions, I think that this would be a good way to proceed. All right. Any other comments on this?
I have a question. Since a lot of these issues, and of course my major flag waving is for transportation, a lot of these issues overlap with other city committees, and I often feel kind of overwhelmed at trying to figure out, okay, so who do I talk to when there's active transportation, streets, environmental action, and planning and zoning that all have to do with how do we develop and implement a more sustainable transportation system. It feels like there's a lot. Fiefdom is not the word, but there are defined areas of responsibility that seems like it fragments and to some extent inhibits a broader discussion of how should the city develop a more comprehensive and integrated policy framework and tie that into the ongoing planning process, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And just on the practical level, I feel like it's hard to go to as a member of the public to have to try and figure out when all these different committees meet, and then I have to, a lot of them meet at times that I'm working, and so I guess I'm appealing to the gods in the ether for some way that to make it easier for citizens to kind of be engaged in a process that's not hard to find your way into, and that is sort of welcoming and ongoing, so that our interests can, that we can contribute. I would like to contribute, but I don't know how to, because the whole process seems so opaque, because there's so many different doors to have to go through to get even a piece of the information that ought to be kind of more holistically presented.
Well, in thinking about that, one of my goals that I would like to see from this committee is I would like to take one recommendation from this committee to the City Council a month to forward our agenda or our values. And, in line with David's request for more citizen engagement, something that I've been thinking about is I'm serious about transportation. We've got to solve our transportation issue, and I would like to see us find the money to hire a really top-notch transportation planning group to do a comprehensive transportation master plan, but do it in the spirit of how we did our library, where there were a lot of citizen engagement opportunities, or how we developed our 2030 city plan. And so is that something that you guys would support? But I think that if we had that transportation plan, then we have something that we can take to voters to look for support for funding. Because right now, we can all talk about we want buses, or we want bike lanes, and there's all these different ideas out here, but I would really like to have someone with some serious expertise take a look at our city, take a look at our goals for development and growth, and help us develop that transportation plan with input from our current transportation, the Ozark Regional Transit and Razorback Transit, with input from our citizens, with input from different stakeholders, much like we want to do the food groups, and develop this comprehensive transportation master plan. How do you feel about that?
I think it's an excellent idea. Have you spoke with Alderman Petty about his proposed, I believe, the street committee right now is discussing the bond surplus and how to exhaust those funds. There's several street improvement projects that are on the table, but I believe one of the latest items added to that list is this study you're talking about.
So maybe our endorsement could lend a little weight to that request.
Yeah, I would definitely think so. I'm not sure exactly what the street committee's schedule is for recommending their package to full city council, but they meet next Tuesday, and so likely sometime beyond that it would be going to full council. So there'd probably be one more meeting opportunity for us to weigh in once we had a little bit more in terms of details from what that study would look like.
I'd be interested to hear some input from the Northwest Arkansas Regional Planning Commission, because they have a real strong transportation component. See where they are currently, what their thinking is, what resources they've availed themselves of.
Yeah, and they're managing a region-wide corridor analysis to look at what type of mass transit makes sense to connect all the cities on a larger scale. I think what Sarah's talking about is something more focused on just getting around the city of Fayetteville.
I'm tired of waiting on the rest of the region to get around to transit. And I think that it is time for Fayetteville to move forward. And we have to set the standard. It will differentiate us, and it will keep us number one in the region.
And then they could integrate their system into ours.
Probably 20 years ago, we used to vacation in Winter Park, Colorado, and I was so impressed that when we drove into that town, you could park your car and you didn't need it the rest of your vacation. Every 20 minutes, a bus was coming through your neighborhood, picking you up, taking you to the restaurants downtown, to the ski resorts, and I thought that was such a wonderful system. I don't know how it was paid for, city, combination, private industry, but it's a wonderful program, I thought.
Yeah, and I think if we can determine what we need and what the citizens desire, what will work for Fayetteville, then we can have something to figure out how to fund it. But I think that we have to establish that plan and the vision first. And I'm tired of waiting. You know, gas isn't getting any cheaper. And you know, people, we have an obesity epidemic. We've got, it's hurting our community financially, it's hurting our health, and it's hurting our environment. But go ahead, David.
Well, yes, I'm in total support. Just on the topic of the Regional Planning Commission, I think they should be coming to hear from us, because I've been involved with transportation planning efforts in other states, and when I moved back here 5 years ago, I was appalled. Our Regional Planning Commission is basically, they take their marching orders from the Northwest Arkansas Council, and they've never met a road project they don't like. They're forcing us, and I'm sure this, you know, a lot of people in the city support it, but they're going to 4-lane Razorback Road and Maple Street all the way up to the main gate of the university. They're going to 4-lane it when you know, we ought to be we need to be making the town more walkable, and they're taking away a primary crosswalk. And this is something that the Regional Planning Commission is more or less shoving down our throats. And we don't have, citizens don't have a voice in this process right now. Planning Commission needs to be, you know, we need to give them our input. And but from what I've seen, the city of Fayetteville is like the lone voice of forward thinkingness, in my opinion, in amongst a region that is dominated by, let's have more trucks on the road, and let's have you know, cut our taxes, and let's you know, let the poor people walk. That's kind of the attitude that I see from a lot of folks. And you know, I think Fayetteville needs to hew to the best of the traditions that we have, which is that we lead, and eventually the others will see the wisdom in what we've done, and they will follow, or they will be left behind. And that's what's happening with a lot of programs.
Thank you, Dan.
Sorry.
It's an important topic, and we get passionate about it. Okay, well, so we're going to hear from someone on waste. How do we want to proceed on transportation? I mean, I could go ahead and see if I could get a resolution drafted to hire a grant writer to look for a or to solicit grants to pay for the development of a comprehensive transportation master plan. And I would be glad to do that if I have your support. Or do you have some other ideas?
Well, I think I'd be curious to see what comes out of the street committee's next meeting in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Because it sounds like their chair is going to recommend this study that you're talking about. So, I mean, I need the grant money. If we're going to pay for it,
that's true.
It's a whole lot easier. And so that'd be my suggestion, is to talk with Alderman Petty and see what's going to...
Could we offer our support in terms of we endorse the development of a comprehensive transportation master plan?
I think that would be... Yeah, I mean, we're an advisory committee to council. The street committee is made up of council members, so I don't see why not.
Okay, can I get a motion?
Yeah.
Right. All right, can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I want to make an amendment.
Yes.
That we, well, I thought I had it worded. Anyway, I want to go straight to the chase as much as possible, so I'll just vote for this and bring that up when there's some slow time.
All right, that sounds good. All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. I will gladly carry that.
So that was a resolution of support for master planning study for...
Yeah, to develop a comprehensive transportation master plan
for the city
of Fayetteville.
All right.
All right. And then if you'll schedule someone from waste, and then, see, we've still got overpopulation on the list, which I do intend to be marching in Little Rock on Saturday against these measers that are limiting our Arkansans' ability to plan their families.
Problem is, are you going to carpool? How many people?
I am actually have some other stops I have to make along the way, so there's going to be 2 of us in the car. But there are carpools available, and we'll be driving a hybrid. But I wish we were taking the train.
Yes.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
What train?
Exactly.
Be there in spirit after work.
You can still,
yeah.
you can still go to New Orleans on the train from here.
Probably make it on a bicycle in one day and start real early.
Actually, I do have a friend that took the bus down there recently, and he said it really wasn't bad. It was actually quite pleasant.
The Trailways, is that what it is?
I believe Jefferson Line.
There's two buses a day to go south and north through Fayetteville.
Yeah, so I'm going to look into that if the schedule
Only one of them
like that.
has crashed in the last 6 months.
I think when I looked at the schedule, it's a 4.5-hour trip down to Little Rock from here.
Yeah.
So it's a little longer, but you can.
But I think it was only about $40. So I mean,
I didn't.
Yeah, it's the cost for gas is comparable if you were driving solo.
Okay.
Right.
So okay. So we move on to our Community Wildlife Habitat Speaker Series.
Well, it went great. I wish I could have talked to Joe Neal tonight. When it was so bad about just how appreciative of that we were having that at the university. We didn't have a huge university student attendance, but the fact that it was there and we're making that presence to join both a state institution in residence on the municipal side of it is great. Mitchell Pruitt was a phenomenal speaker. I'm so glad that Terry mentioned that he would be good, and Joe Neal, of course, was as great as Joe Neal always is. So that was it was extremely successful. Everyone that was there enjoyed it, and it ran very efficiently. And this is something that we should definitely continue to do as part of our annual package to make sure the certification happens, and as is written in our code. So this is a great part of the educational series.
Was there any follow-up, any like forms available to folks?
We did. We had a couple of tables actually with this handout on it. Terry was great about the presentation and everything, but we had all of our handouts advertised at meeting time. And I don't know if we had any of our old agendas there, but it was very clear that this was a combined effort from the Environmental Action Committee and our other groups in Fayetteville.
Natural Heritage
Association.
For the folks who could actually sign up after the meeting?
Yes. Aubrey was.
Yeah, there was that opportunity.
Okay. So, but it was great. Yeah.
I'd like to announce, not because of that program, but because of my being active in this committee and learning about the Habitat Certification Program. My mother-in-law has a yard in Fayetteville that is already a wildlife habitat, and so I told her about the program. She's like, well, golly gee, yeah, definitely sign up for that. So she's got her sign now and got it up in her yard. So.
Excellent.
Well, that program, Joe spoke, that is on YouTube. You can watch that whole presentation with.
Did you get it?
Yeah, it's in parts. I'm not sure I ever got it all combined, but you can watch about several clips of whatever month that was.
All right, do we have any announcements? Any action items or anything else, any further business?
Well, we are moved officially to the third Monday of each month.
Yes. This is our normal meeting time, our normal meeting place.
Okay.
I'll work on our audiovisual and agenda issues, particularly
and public notification
public
issues.
Yes, for our
Okay, and then I would just want to remind everyone that Animal Services Board is the second Monday of April at 6 p.m. And where do they meet?
111, I believe you said.
111?
111, yeah, at 6 o'clock.
Okay, so, try to attend, and if you can't attend, at least, catch up with that on our public access.
I'd be okay with getting a reminder about that, too.
I would be as well.
Second Monday, the 8th.
Push.
Yeah.
I'm not the least bit offended. Get them reminders.
And,
Do we want to, I'm just wondering about attending that committee. Do we want to make contact with them beforehand and ask to have an agenda item added to their agenda to discuss this topic with them?
I think that would be appropriate, and I think that we should go ahead and invite the Audubon Society and or at least let them know that we're going to be talking about that and other animal groups that are interested. Just,
I guess maybe what we ought to tell them what our discussion has been, ask would they add us to their agenda to discuss it with them, and if Audubon chooses to come and make comments, they're welcome to do so. I don't know that it's our place to necessarily invite them to their meeting.
Yeah, let's just make sure that the public is aware, including the groups that would be primarily concerned. So,
do we have a commitment from someone to present from our group or share from our group what we think we heard and what our questions are, or do we maybe want to collaborate via email between now and then on what our questions should be to them?
That might be better, gives us a little more time to list some out, and then we can decide which questions we want to present to them.
Okay.
Well, my points that I would make, the cat that you see, I really think that's a good place to begin, because birds, there are other things that cats do that aren't very nice besides killing birds. And people often don't understand that a lot of things that are city policy are complaint driven, and that really brings a whole new point of view to it. I have neighbors who have 13 dogs, and they keep them in the house most of the time, but when they're out, the backyard is just a complete shambles. The earth is all packed down, as it will be when you have dogs. It's, there are all kinds of issues there. Just, the whole scale, everything we've talked about tonight. But city action on it is complaint driven. There's a motorhome park there that one of them sleeps in some of the times. There's a whole litany of things wrong with that setup, but it's gone on for years. And that's just how it is. City policy is complaint driven. So it's important to think about things in those terms as we try to get some action going on.
Well, let's just all make a point to personally review that ordinance again. We'll make contact with the Animal Services Board. We'll make sure that the public is included in this process, and then we'll determine if there's an action that we need to take or not. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Thank you, everyone.